Hey there everyone, Pal here, and welcome back. It's time for another World of Warships replay. And today, well, I'm still trying to get the correct playback for what is going on with my loadout now, or my build for my computer. So I'm now on a 21:9 monitor. It's a 34-inch widescreen. So the capture footage for what is going up on YouTube, it's all wrong. So I'm just trying different render options. The last video, the one with the Bismarck, you might have noticed things were kind of squished. And that was because it fit everything to the screen and it worked, but things definitely were a little squished is the way to put it. So this is going to be a different render. This one's probably going to leave a little bit of letterboxing for 1920 16:9 ratios, but it shouldn't be nearly as bad as the Star Citizen video 2 weekends ago was. It's just something we're trying, so let me know how it comes across. We'll see how things go. Anyway, so this is a North Carolina, and I apologize because I'm going to call that a New Mexico at least once in this video. It's just, I don't know why. The New Mexico is what comes to mind when I go to say North Carolina. They're both start with N and with something. Mexico and Carolina don't sound. Anyway, this is the American Tier 8 regular battleship. There is a premium version of this, the Alabama, which I do have. I think have I showed that off yet? Maybe not. It's almost the exact same ship. The Alabama has a better torpedo bulge, so better torpedo protection. It is a little bit nimbler in terms of its rudder shift, but nothing drastic. Has a better citadel, but not drastic again. Whereas the New Mexico has better values on its guns. I think it's primarily the Sigma value is a little bit better. Not drastic, but a little bit better. The New Mexico also has slightly better AA. The New Mexico, though, is probably the first point where the American battleships really started to work for me. And it mainly comes down to that top speed. Coming into this, the North Carolina, the Colorado had a top speed of like 21.5 knots. Whereas this guy, 27.5, 27.6, something like that, depending on if you're running flags or not. Much, much faster. Now, it's still the slowest battleship by a fair margin for Tier 8. You have the Bismarck, which gets 31, I think, and then you also have the Amagi, which is somewhere in that range too. So you're still 3 to 4 knots slower than the other Tier 8 battleships, but you're no longer just way behind. 27.5 works. You can sail at 27.5. You can stay with the fleet and you can be aggressive, something you cannot do with the Colorado. The Colorado, as soon as you spawn in, you basically can sail right at the nearest point, and the enemy team's still going to beat you there no matter what. You're just way too slow. There's nothing you can really do about it. Unfortunately, we did start off here. We lost our friendly DD right away. I kind of saw this coming. If I had the main recording, I actually was saying overall, I'm like, nope, because you saw that Miyoko come across. When you see a Miyoko come across a cap like that at about 12 kilometers, he's putting torpedoes down. And we're going to see that Miyoko again later on. He's playing mostly a torpedo build from what I can tell. He's putting down a lot of torpedoes, but he put one salvo down each one of the channel, and here comes another set coming in behind that. We're not going to sail in there, though. We're going to let the rest of the team worry about that. We want to take care of this Bismarck. So, the North Carolina. What is the main part about this ship? Well, unlike the Bismarck, where you can really do okay damage with your secondary guns and with your primary guns, let your secondaries do a lot of the work, you cannot do that here with the North Carolina. The North Carolina is all about its primary armament, which is perfectly fine for a battleship. That does feel appropriate for a battleship. But what it really means is you have to be on point with the North Carolina. You have to make the most of each and every reload, because you're going to be reloading about 30 seconds depending on your loadout. Thank you, phone. Thank you for doing that. You know, you're only getting 2 salvos out a minute, give or take, depending on adrenaline rush, things like that. So the thing with the North Carolina is proper target prioritization. That doesn't necessarily mean always shoot the weakest target or things like that, but you want to make sure that your shots are going at targets where they're going to have the best effect on target. Sometimes this will be the lowest target, the closest target to you. Sometimes this will also be shooting over the closest target at a cruiser or something sailing broadside onto you, where you're going to get greater effect. Sometimes this will mean holding your shot for 10 seconds or so as you wait for a ship to turn out to give you a proper broadside, where you could fire right away and then the target starts to turn and you go ahead and you're basically, you do nothing because you bounce all your shells, and now you're reloading for the next 30 seconds as the target is in the turn. At the same time, though, there's other points where a target's not going to turn. They're going to stay bow into you. They're going to stay angled and everything. And if you just sit there and hold your shots, well, that's just downtime in terms of DPS. You got to make the most of your damage per minute. So sometimes you got to take those shots pretty darn quick. And right here is one of those examples. I'm keeping an eye on this North Carolina. He's out there. Moderately long range, 13 kilometers is perfectly doable with the New Mexico, but his speed seemed very off. And I was trying to tell, was he slowing down or had he already been slow and he was starting to accelerate? It looked like he was starting to accelerate a little bit, so I scattered my shots. I put, one shot in close and then the next two further out as I went. Another good thing about the New Mexico is you do have those 3 turrets with 9 guns in total. The 4th turret would be nice, but that's basically what you get when you get to the Montana. In fact, these guns are the exact same as the Tier 10 Montana guns. Starting with the Colorado, you get the 406 millimeters. These are the same 406, just upgraded into 3 turrets with triple rather than 4 turrets with doubles. They're a lot more accurate than the Colorado guns. These will also be the same guns that then end up on the Iowa. The Iowa, again, then has even more accurate versions of them. They have a bit more control to them. The Iowa, also being Tier 9, can attach, Advanced Plotting Room, I think it is, the one that reduces dispersion even more. So the Iowa and the Montana can really get that dispersion pretty darn tight. The New Mexico still gets wonky dispersion from time to time. You'll see this mainly at like 16 to 20 kilometers, where shots look pretty darn good initially going out and they just flare all over the place and you completely miss things. Inside that 16 kilometer range though, they're super reliable. And that's really what I've learned to be the primary thing with the New Mexico. So the New Mexico, compared to its tier ships, has really good concealment. The Bismarck and the Amagi are both noticeably bigger. They're a lot longer ships. And if you stack concealment on this guy, you can get his concealment down pretty good. You can see right now, if you look at the mini-map, my concealment is 11.8, which is not bad for a battleship. What this does, though, is this means I can sometimes get within 14, 13 kilometers of a target without them knowing I'm there, and then you just unload on them. You'll wait for them to open up a broadside, and that's what I'm doing right here with this North Carolina. This is one of those that's going back where you got to choose, do you hold your shot or do you not hold your shot? And I'm sitting here, and if I had the actual audio, I was like, open up, open up. I wanted him to turn out. I see these torpedoes coming in from the lower right-hand corner, coming towards them. I'm like, come on, show me the broadside. I'm just waiting for it. Now, could I maybe have fired and then already been halfway reloaded by the time I do fire again? Yeah, that's a possibility. In fact, looking back at this video now, I probably should have done that. I could have gotten 2 salvos off in a little over the time it took me to get 1 salvo off. But even just getting 1 salvo off, that was a pretty good salvo. I had 2 pennies on him. He felt that one pretty good. This next section here, though, is a good part of the video where I'm going to say it shows acquiring priority targets and really making the most out of your gun. So you can see here, I have a very target-rich environment. I have obviously the almost dead North Carolina on my right, but then I have 4 enemy cruisers out in front of me. At first, I was going to take the shot at the North Carolina. That's very tempting. You want to go ahead and you want to finish off those little targets, but from the amount of sustained fire he's coming under, he's overextended, that North Carolina is going to die. Me putting a shot into him would just waste my salvo. Instead, I go ahead and I take it at the Miyoko, who's sailing broadside to me, and I do end up coming away with the Citadel. That Miyoko really felt that. This is the same Miyoko we saw at the beginning of the battle. He's fallen back now, but we're right on the cusp of his torpedo range. So what I'm watching for is he's going to try and close. He wants to get, I'm sailing towards him. His torpedoes are 10 kilometers, so he wants to be dropping torpedoes right about now and starting to get away. The thing about the Japanese cruisers, especially the non-premium ones, they need to really open up their broadside in order to drop their torpedoes. And that's exactly what I waited for. He was going to have to continue turning out in order to put his torpedoes in the water. When he did so, I was going to finish him off. At the same time, I'm now turning to turn away. Mainly because I know he dropped torpedoes. I want to make sure that I'm at least 10 kilometers from where those torpedoes went in the water, so I know they will drop off early. Now that I put a few kilometer range, I'm going to come back in. Nuremberger's coming along, and this is another one, just like the North Carolina before, where I'm saying, turn out, turn out, turn out. I'm just waiting for this guy to give me a little bit of broadside. I'm just looking at different targets around. We lost the Benoni behind the island, and there we go. Nuremberg's turning out. Give him a little bit of a range lead, feather the shots, and we'll wait for them to go out. Yeah, they're looking pretty good, and they're good. They're real good. Right away, the first round that hits, we get that guy. I should have said this normally. This is not an amazing round in terms of damage done, but there are some really good shots in this game. And that was probably the biggest thing. There was a few things that could maybe been considered kill steals, like that Bismarck early on, though it was a secondary that killed him. But it just does show a great bit about prioritizing targets and really taking your aim, taking your time with it, but making each shot count as much as possible. That there, I probably should have taken that shot. I backed off because I saw on my minimap, I saw the Bodoni here come out in the open. I saw the Bodoni on the minimap before he was actually on the screen. And that's common. That will happen a lot. Things will show up on the minimap a second to 2 seconds before you'll actually see him on the map. And these shots were bad. That was a bad salvo. So just as I was talking about how we're focusing on good salvos, that was a really bad salvo. At this point now, what I've done is I've looked at the map. Our team is down by 1 ship. We're not losing too bad, but they did have the 2-cap advantage for most of the time. So they have the overall advantage. The New Mexico is going to die, though he did put that fire out and we don't want him to start recovering. I don't have a good shot on anything else. I'm going to put some rounds out there onto the New Mexico. You can hit a battleship at that range, so we'll try it, but he will get killed off right there before my shots land. What was I saying now? One thing that you have to be very careful about, and someone's pinging the map here, but I'd already started turning back. You don't want to over chase. If we look to the York now, off to my port side, who's heading out after that Bodoni's out of the fight. He is not going to be a factor in the rest of this battle, or at least in the battle for the next 3 or 4 minutes. He's given so much ground. He's at the 1 line, or the A line. There's nothing he's going to do. So that York chasing him out in a close battle, he really shouldn't do that. He should turn back in. And that was actually what I was doing before. After I took those shots to the Bodoni, I turned back and I was going to make headway straight for the caps to get back into this fight a little bit more. Algier, French cruisers. I'm still getting a feel for these guys. They're fast. They're real fast. And shooting at them is a bit like shooting at a destroyer. Obviously, they are larger ships, so they're a little bit easier to hit than a destroyer, but the lead you have to put on them is quite extreme. They're also fairly nimble. So I did get, I would say, a little bit lucky with that Citadel there. Now we're going to put a few more shots out, but he's turning back in. Is he turning in, turning out? I don't know exactly which way he's going. And he's far enough out, fast enough that it's not very good. But we're coming back in. We want to assist with this Alabama. We're going to get him. Going to get him. Oh, fell just short. That would have been a Citadel, too, if that had gone another 10 meters further. That would have really set them. And York's in trouble over there now. You can see he's got planes on him, torpedo bombers, dive bombers, Bodoni, Algier, all shooting at him. And what do we have here? We have a destroyer. Oh boy. And our Hatsuharu is in rough shape. He's not going to win this fight. Something that you will see a lot of people do. Battleships fighting destroyers. They switch over to HE. And if you're against a whole bunch of destroyers or only a destroyer, HE is good. But do not underestimate the power of 5 battleship shells just overpenning. They do a lot of damage to a destroyer. You figure even if they overpen, those 5 shells still did somewhere in the range of like 9,000 damage. For a ship that only has 12,000 health, that's more than enough to really dissuade them unless they're at full health. And if one of those shells hadn't overpenned, had actually stuck in the ship, which is entirely possible, the damage would have just been that much higher. I don't tend to shoot HE at destroyers unless I am only fighting destroyers. What basically happens is you might load that HE to shoot at that destroyer, and as soon as you load that HE, there's going to be a cruiser broadside to you, and now you have HE loaded. It's much better to keep the AP loaded, be ready to engage other targets, and if you can, then you can make the most of that impact. Firing those HE rounds is effective against bow-in battleships, destroyers, but you give up so much potential. So you have to really read each map as it's playing out and see, okay, what targets are there close to me? Oh, hello, Mr. Atlanta. You're slowing down. You think you're being cheeky hiding behind that island there. I think I have something else to say about that. Look at all that AA going off. Oh, he's starting to speed up. He's starting to speed up. Drop faster, shells. Drop faster. Too far, too far, too far. And just right. Another fun cheeky shot. We're going to come on around here, and at this point now we've turned this around quite a bit. They still have the lead because they have the cap, but we now have all the momentum. We have 3 fairly healthy battleships coming in. I've used 1 repair party so far. Up, and there goes, what was that? The Algier got taken out by the North Carolina. That was a great shot. That Algier was being a little bit of a pain in the ass, and now it's down to 2. Now we have the cap lead. Well, not cap points, but we have the point lead. Get to finish out. Let's see here. What else can we talk about the North Carolina? Oh, the North Carolina is part of one of the American battleship lines that is in a little bit of an odd spot. So you notice I have 5 planes shot down, even though no planes ever really aggressively attacked me. There was a point where a few scout planes came over top of me and everything. The North Carolina, well, pretty much all American battleships starting off with about tier 5 have really good AA. For the longest time, though, it was almost pointless to put any real points into it because you never saw a carrier. You would see a carrier 1 in 5, 1 in 8, maybe 1 in 10 battles. With the recent changes, carriers are more common than they were. Now, that doesn't mean they're always there. I would say they're now about 33% of the time rather than 10% of the time. And it puts you in an awkward situation. Do you put points into AA, something that's going to be used 33% of the time? And if you do, the North Carolina, the Colorado, but North Carolina, Iowa, Montana, Alabama, Missouri, they can just be absolute AA fortresses. But you might, 60% of the time, you might not never get to use it and everything. And it makes it for a real difficult, like this captain, I'd have to go back in and actually look. I don't have any of the AA captain skills, but I do think I have one of the AA mods attached to the ship because there was nothing else better to put there. Even without that, though, I'm still pushing like 70 AA rating. If you fully spec this thing out with captain skills, you can get this thing well over 100 AA rating. Just shoot down anything and everything that comes near you. But again, it's like you don't get to use it all that often. Well, you get to use it more often than you did 4 months ago, but there's still, it's iffy. I'd rather something like torpedo protection, like vigilance, something that I know every fight there's going to be a destroyer. Every single fight there's going to be at least one destroyer. Okay, there's a very rare one, but 99% of battles there's going to be multiple destroyers in there. So torpedo protection, vigilance, being able to see those torpedoes ends up coming into play almost every single battle. Improving your main gun armament, your main caliber, your dispersion, all of that comes into play every single battle. While I wouldn't mind doing a heavy AA build, I just can't quite do it because it's only going to come in 33% of the time, 10% of the time, maybe 50% of the time. Man, you got lucky, Bodoni. You got real lucky there. I thought I was going to hit you. Fell off just behind him. He's going to come back around. I do say this next shot here is really bad. I'll just warn you guys right away. I looked at the minimap, I thought the Lexington was going to beach himself. So I lined my guns up right where I thought he was going to beach and where his hull would come to a stop, and I fired there. He made the turn, though. He made the turn, and I just completely fell. My shots fell behind him, but I think the North Carolina, New Mexico, somebody got him. North Carolina got him. Now the Bodoni's real low. And I don't have the post-credit screen, so this is going to end pretty much right here. I know this one was a lot more rambling. Like I said, this is more just of a test for the widescreen render, and I want to see how that looks for people that are running 1080p monitors. Bodoni, do I get this one? I can't even remember. I might get another cheeky shot out here on the Bodoni, or somebody else gets him. He's got a lot of battleship fire going out at him. And, nope, they missed. Next one's coming in. Are they going to hit? Those look like they're going to hit. Nope. One of them hit, and, oh, I got it. There we go. All right, guys, that was the North Carolina. Let me know how the video looked. Until next time, this has been Paller. Thanks for watching.